fine with what the administration has advertised. The only problem that I have is that one of my employees is left off, and that's, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I had started paying employees out of probation user fees to try to eliminate some burden on the tax dollar. And that was done with the understanding that we can only do it until we exhaust the funds in that fund. That occurred mid-year. So we've had to move everybody back into city general. And so on the form that I submitted, it didn't match up correctly. So the leaving of one of my court secretaries off, I believe, is just an oversight. I've spoken with Craig multiple times. We worked on the budget together.
Okay.
And however council wants to handle it, as long as I have an employee January 1, I'm good. I don't know if we need to amend now. I don't know if I need to come back January 1 and ask for an additional appropriation if we find it somewhere else. Whatever we have to do to make it right.
With the executive's permission, we can increase the budget, can't we, Craig? But otherwise, we can just do an additional appropriation at the beginning of the year. Right, we can do that either.
Yeah,
Probably
as long as you guys, when I come in at the first meeting or the, January 1 and you guys see me, you're not like, as long as you know to anticipate me.
All right.
Some of the things in my budget that are different, like I said, I moved some of the staff back into city general instead of probation user fees. So the bottom dollar looks a lot higher, but things haven't changed a whole lot. Interpreter money has changed. We've had to take that up. We're hoping not to run out this year. We've transferred from a lot of different line items already.
Do you mind giving us line items so we can refer to those lines?
Yes.
Judge,
sorry.
oh, no, you're fine.
I'm sorry.
Would you mind if I ask questions?
Ask them and then, yes, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Back to the format we kind of had prior to back.
Yeah.
So, of course, your line item, we're going to start right, Judge, right up at the top. Your line item has increased.
Yes.
Reflecting what percentage raise was that?
That I put into my line item. I talked to Craig. We put in the 5% that the elected officials did not get.
Okay. And so then increases through court secretary, probation officer, public defender.
Probation officer went up pursuant to state statute, and it's at the state minimum.
Okay.
The other line items, I'm not sure, Craig, how far 1%? Craig says 1% is up. No part-time.
Public defender.
Public defender. So yes, public defender is up. If you guys remember last year, the law changed January 1 of this year, which said that the state of Indiana can no longer negotiate with an unrepresented party without a full advisement being done. And as soon as you do a full advisement to somebody, they're going to get scared and want a public defender. And that was my anticipation, and that has proven to be true. So the only way I could handle the increase of the PD appointments as a result of that law was to either hire another public defender or use the one that I currently have and just double his time. And I talked to Mr. McKinney, who's the public defender.
Mm-hmm.
He said that he would be willing to do it if we paid him what the county PDs get paid, which is how I came up with that figure. Okay. It was $50,000. And what we've done is pretty much tripled his time here in the court. He's here all day Tuesday instead of half a day Tuesday. He's here on Thursdays. So anybody who wants a public defender, he gets appointed. He doesn't complain. We do the Zoom calls from the jail. It's really honestly worked out well. So that's why that is up. A couple of things, when I talked about at the beginning of the year, needing to increase it, then Craig told me to send the PI form through. So I've sent the PI form through for this year. Mm-hmm. And then this is for the budget for 2025.
Okay. And so then these other line items, bailiff, where court recorder, those are all, the bailiff did not at all. Court recorder, are those just
that's what, yeah.
Okay. How much of these were covered and are now moving to general?
I don't have last year's budget. Okay, so I believe for 2024, we had the probation officer out of the probation user fee fund, which is $268.
Mm-hmm.
We had a probation officer, I had a bailiff, and a court secretary, and all the fringe benefits associated with those employees.
That's why it's much higher.
I think
Yeah.
one year we ended up having 2 court secretaries, a bailiff and a probation officer. So I've put a lot in and then taken it back as much as I could until we just finally, in reality, when COVID shut everything down, the case filings were down, people having jobs were down. So we weren't being able to process the cases to put people on probation. The state wasn't filing cases. Law enforcement contact with the public was down. So there was a period of time where our case filings dropped by half. This is the first year now we are back up to almost pre-COVID numbers. I
Okay.
think we were close. We're on track for 2,500 for the year, 2,500 new cases, just misdemeanors alone. I think we're close to 8,000 infractions, are on track for that this year for new cases. So as the cases get filed,
Thank you.
as the cases get processed and people get put on probation, then the probation user fee fund should be coming back alive. I don't know that when I guarded it pretty closely when I first came in to figure out what we can do. But when I started spending out of it, we had it up to about 500,000. If we use it annually, we'll never get it back up to that level because that's just not probable. We'll probably bring in 75,000 a year in it. And that's a generous estimate.
Your office supplies went up, and yet you've only spent about 65% so far this year.
So we order forms, triplicate forms, and the notices and the orders and things of that nature. We're getting ready to place a pretty big order
Okay.
on that because we ordered large, and then I may not need to order forms again for another year. So that's just the overall cost of things. I think we have a $1,400 form bill outstanding that she's not submitted yet, so.
All right. And then,
Do we get to ask questions?
yes, I'll call on you in just a moment.
Okay.
Contractual services, would that be,
Contractual services, I believe, is what we were paying interpreters out of.
okay.
We have an interpreter down there for $3,000, so contractual services is not me. Contractual
I see it
services
now.
is the attorney.
All right.
So my line items
Then-
stop at official bond. So the bond is, I think
You're the same.
it's like $250, it's the same. Other services and charges are the same. The maintenance agreement is the same. We took up the interpreter, I believe, is the only thing that we increased. Is that right?
Yeah. Other than the salaries.
Yeah, computer and printers, we went from 3,300 to 4,000 for no reason other than if I have screens go out, if a computer goes out, just the cost, the inflation part of life, I've just added that in. Premium bonds the same. Other services and charges, 2,800 to 3,000. We pay other services and charges. So we have, Shelley's not here, I'm sorry, she's the brains of the line items.
Okay.
And then the interpreter, we bumped the interpreter up. We've been lucky so far. I use Andrea Johnson from Victims Advocate. She does a great job for us. She's not state certified, so I don't have to pay her the state. She doesn't charge me the state certified prices. So that's why we're able to do it at the 3,000 instead of something higher. So as long as we have access to her, we're able to keep a control of that for a while.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, I would like to.
Sure.
Judge, talk to me about the public defender. You decided instead of doing 2, you decided to go to 1 and increase their salary.
Mhm.
I'm worried about people who cannot meet with above. I mean, you said he's going to be here for a day and half a day, a full day and a half. Does the public defender meet with the people who want to go in front of you? Does he meet after hours, or is there just 2 days that he can
Well,
meet?
he has his private office that he sees clients in.
Okay,
So when I hold an initial hearing on a new case,
yeah,
and I ask the person, you have an option regarding counsel. You can represent yourself and we can go through the advisement. You can hire a private counsel and I'll give you time to do that, or a public defender.
okay,
If they ask for and qualify for the public defender, I then give them a date, which is an in-court pretrial conference here. And I also provide them the phone number, email, and address and name of their public defender. They get that information. can contact the public defender when they want to. He does set up here on the first pretrial conference back in that room, and he will meet with everybody confidentially and for as long as they need to back then. A lot of times he's meeting with them in his private office. I don't manage how he meets with his clients.
Okay, so my question to you is this. He has his own practice. And he has a certain time that he dedicates for the city, for the people that want to come in front of your court.
No hearings like any public defender does. All the public defenders have private practices.
Oh, I get it.
And they get assigned cases. And so they set aside time to be in court. When they meet with their clients, it's not court time. I'm not involved in that, nor do I have any say-so over that. So if you're asking about the consultations that the attorney is having with their clients,
Yeah.
you would need to talk to Mr. McKinney. I've not received any complaints from any public defender clients. He's very responsive to me, to the court, to the prosecutor's office. Cases are actually being resolved now quicker than they have been since I've taken over almost 10 years ago.
So my concern is for people who are coming in front of you, that they have ample time to meet with their public defender and not just meet with him 2 minutes before the court. Do you
Oh,
see
no,
what I'm saying?
that's not how it
Okay,
happens.
so-
That is not how it happens. So they'll go back into that room. They will meet and go over everything. If additional time's needed, he schedules appointments with them in his office,
Okay.
and we reset the pretrial conference.
And is there a reason why there was no bailiff? There was no bailiff in let me think here. You have no bailiff this year, right?
Well, no, I do have a bailiff this year.
Okay, because there's a no bailiff there's a bailiff for 40, and then there's another spot where it says 0.
So I have one bailiff, and then I have 3 court secretaries. And working with the chief of police, I hired Andre Pearson, who is a reserve Muncie officer, as my 3rd court secretary.
Okay.
That way, when Ron Locke is on vacation or unavailable, I have an officer in-house that can provide security, and we don't have to bring somebody off the street.
Okay.
So that one was being paid for out of probation user fees, which is on, Mr. Pearson is the one that is not in the 2025 budget.
And one more last question.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a fee for 80. Did that include? Oh, I circled it. I'm sorry. Did you say you have 2 or 3 secretaries? Oh, so that 2. It says
I have
2 on
one,
this
yeah,
one.
I have 1 bailiff and 3 secretaries, but the budget is funded for 1 bailiff and 2 secretaries.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And so the employee missing is at the secretary pay rate because he does our entries. He functions as a secretary until we need him to
One last question.
function as a bailiff.
What, if I may? So if the council decides that they want to cut here and cut there, where would you cut? Where would it be the least, just in case this people start talking about cutting? Where in your department, where could you take the most cut and have the least impact?
So in all reality, I've submitted a bare bones budget. You can cut, not talking about wages, but you can cut any line item I have here. It doesn't matter to me, but if I run out of interpreter money, I'm going to have to be back because it has to be provided.
Sure.
If, I have to provide pauper defense. The things that are in my budget, you can take, you can take the computers, you can take the office supplies, you can take all of that. I currently already buy the pens for my office
Yeah.
out of my own
I
pocket.
know, just like teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at
So,
that point,
yeah.
it is pretty much bare bones. If you need to cut it, cut it. And if I don't need the money, you won't see me. But if I need it, I'm going to be in front of you.
So in your opinion, you provided us the best budget to serve the public.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Best serve the public. I'm going to add
Yes,
that in there.
yes.
Thank you.
And as soon as we get more money coming back into probation user fees, we can start moving some stuff over to that and offset the tax dollar that way.
Appreciate you, Judge. Thank you.
Any other finance committee members have questions for Judge Dunick? Great. Thank you, Judge.
Okay.
Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
All right, Mr. Talby, we are going to be discussing animal control, which is on page 16. I can see. Welcome, sir. We'll just jump right in with some questions. First, welcome. Congratulations on your job and all that good stuff.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Obviously, I'm going to ask about the increase in wages. Do you know what percentage that was, sir?
Wages in terms of where?
So let's start with superintendent.
So we didn't increase any, aside from the increase that was given to the city.
Okay.
I didn't put any.
So it's
rate-
what the controller
Yes.
built into the budget?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And that goes the same with all the positions then? Controller dictated the increase in wages?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Let's see. Did you add, no, there it is. I was gonna say, did you add the dog tech, cat tech, office manager? Those are all wages. We go down to all those. Okay, food and litter.
Yes.
I'm not touching it.
Yeah. Right now we're at roughly 350 animals, so
Yeah.
there's not much we can do about food and litter costs right now.
Okay. Have you contacted the Indy Humane about food donations and things along those lines?
Yes.
To
So
supplement, not to cut, just to supplement?
and we are back on. We get the deliveries. That was kind of a seamless
Yeah.
transition
Thank you
initially
very
when I
much
got
for
in.
That will help out. Vehicle repairs, how are your vehicles?
Well, they're aging. We don't have anything newer than 10 years old.
Okay.
We've got, I think, about 160,000 miles on all the animal control vehicles, but those are daily driven.
Okay, and repairs to buildings went up over 100%. Do you have big repairs planned
Yep.
for 2025?
Yeah. So, and here let me give you this. So this is my flooring.
Ooh.
So I am planning to have her around.
Thank you, sure thing.
So I am planning to.
There you go.
We've done some flooring. We did the laundry room and the kitchen. I have put in there, that's going to be the biggest raise you'll see. And I'm wanting to get those floors redone next
Okay.
year. So that's what that big increase there. Yeah, I've got 2 quotes. It's going to be about $27,000.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely, sir.
Those quotes that you received for those flooring, are those local vendors?
Yes. Yes.
Did you put it out for all the local?
No, it's kind of not been an official process. I'm just feeling out to get an idea of what I needed to ask you guys on that. So I just wanted to get a number. I would go through, the normal avenues for bidding. I just wanted to get a ballpark number so I could come to you guys with a
Okay,
number.
and other services and charges that went up a little bit, $5,000 is number one, what falls into that category? And number two, what plans do you have for 2025 that are,
So with that, we've been supplementing some, we do have a worker, Dana, our volunteer coordinator comes out of that. We have been supplementing some of the building maintenance. So our biggest building maintenance thing has been the AC unit. I was allotted 15K there. I've spent 22 on the AC unit since I've been there.
all right, just one for clarification, you're supplementing staffing out of other services and charges?
That, and it's unique. Dana is paid out of that she goes through the Board of Works. So she's supplemented out of that, yes.
Interesting.
What's Dana's position? Sorry.
She's our rescue coordinator. So anything that goes to a rescue, foster, those types of things, she spearheads that.
How long has that been in practice?
So I'm not exactly sure. I've only been 5 months. So I'm not sure. I know that's where it comes out of.
Councilperson Selby?
May I? Thank you.
Yeah.
First of all, the last council meeting last year, the budget meeting, there were many council people, and Mr. Green was here, Councilman Green. We were very concerned about the food and litter amount, and I really appreciate seeing that number in there.
Yeah.
Because last year it was like unbelievably low, and I knew you guys would. And I don't want the shelter to be in a position where you're always asking for food. It is our responsibility to take care of our animals and our pets. So I really I was looking forward to seeing that number, and that makes me happy. Thank you.
Right. And right now, we are at 27. So I am trying to keep that down.
You gotta feed them and you gotta take care of the
Yep.
animals. Thank
Yep.
you. I do have another question to you. I'm looking at the part-time and overtime.
Mhm.
So part-time, could you tell me how you're gonna balance both? I've been struggling with it. Can we increase part-time to cut overtime, or do we increase overtime to, in your opinion, as the director,
So-
what is the best way to be conservative with that money?
Yeah,
How would
so-
you do that?
That's a great question. So we are, for the first time since I've been there, in my experience, I think the shelter's been just chronically understaffed,
Sure.
which I think the year before we spent $60K
Yeah.
on overtime.
Yeah.
We are now fully staffed. I've hired, in my short 5 months, I've hired 18 people.
Mhm.
And so now we're fully staffed. So I didn't increase overtime because I think we can work within that, the current line item.
Okay. Okay, one more question. You are spending a lot on money on old cars. What are your plans? Because $9,000, just because you fix it, doesn't mean it's not going to break again.
Right,
For a
right.
different reason.
And so I did increase that slightly. I'm trying to be conservative with taxpayers' money.
I understand that.
It's going to eventually, I'm getting my head wrapped around it now. But yes, we're dealing with an aging fleet. And there's some things we're working on. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to play out.
Okay.
Decommissioned vehicles, working, but no solution as of now.
Okay.
Um,
And you'll come to us at
Yep,
another time when you have a
absolutely.
plan. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other? Ms. Goyen? Councilperson Goyen?
Josh, dog and cat tech, it looks like it's doubled. Have you hired a second one or?
So I believe those are just my full-time. So I have one full-time dog tech and one full-time cat tech. It did double. We moved some monies around. I'm not sure if that's reflected in the numbers you guys are looking at, but
Yes.
that is not over budget. I worked with
You moved
Greg
some other
to move
numbers
those.
around.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
You've, yeah, you've
I
spent
see that.
more than 100% so far.
And so we actually just this week moved money from the 411527 up to, so that is within. We added 30,000 to the cat and dog tech, and also we added
From where?
from the animal shelter driver one. That was essentially one employee being paid out of there. Got with Craig. We did the math as to what that needs to be sustainable. And we also we added 10,000 to the overtime. So that's also within, I'm really trying to get the overtime reduced. That's
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question if I may.
Please go.
A couple of them to you. One being the food
Mhm.
and the litter that you use.
Yep.
I know it's for dogs and cats both. Have you reached out yet to manufacturers? I did that a couple of years ago. I mentioned it to the director. Those that manufacture may be willing to donate to different animal shelters.
Yeah, and that's absolutely something I'll look into. I haven't up to this point.
Okay.
But that's a
Okay,
great
I'd
idea.
encourage you to do that.
Yeah.
Then the other question that I have is in regards to the maintenance repairs on the buildings. You've got the photographs that we looked at.
Mhm.
What is it that you're trying to replace on the floor? What is it you're going to put down?
So essentially, it's a chip and seal. They sand it down, fill cracks. We have 2 rooms that we got it done in. Same company, and I kind of inherited that project from the previous director. It's a massive section of the building. It really is. That's where our kennels. But you guys can tell from the pictures, it's clearly been just kind of passed over year to year. And so I'm kind of trying to section out, these projects in a way that kind of makes sense for the taxpayers.
Cages, pools, and equipment, you've spent only 27% of that line item so far this year. Is there a reason for that, or do you see at the end of the year that being a bigger expense?
I haven't had to really, I came in 5 months in. I haven't had to use any spending out of that. So
Okay.
in my experience, I'm not exactly sure if that
All right.
comes kind of at the end of the year.
Okay. All right. And Councilman
Yes,
Backer?
yes, thank you. I have one question about your uniform ask. You spent 113% of last year's budget on uniforms. Is that reflected in this budget?
I think
ask?
there was no tracking system so per the contract, they get allotted monies, for equipment and stuff. There was no type of tracking or anything. So I came in with that overspent. And I'm going to have, a few, my ACOs wear polos similar to what I'm wearing. And I've just hired 2 new ones. So it requires, but I think I can work within that. I didn't ask for any type of increase. I think that's something we can work with.
Thank you. That's all.
Are there any other questions from the committee? All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Next up is Building Commissioner on page 9, Mr. Selvey. Welcome.
Good evening.
All right. Let us go through this really quickly. Not too quickly. Looking at salaries, what percentage of an increase did you?
I just look at salaries as a placeholder. We're asking employees, so they'll come out in the wash, do what it is.
Okay.
What was that percentage
What was
though?
the percentage?
3 or 4%. Nothing major.
Okay. And then. Hold on 1 second. Let me find the rest of this. You made this very easy. Other services and charges that increased. Can you explain?
Absolutely. What you won't see on the sheet is the mower item, which is about $7,000. I don't need it. And the other,
Vehicles.
it's legal fees, postage at $10 a certified mailing. We often do some emergency work. We had to fill a basement in. That's about $2,000. It gives us the continuity to be responsive to the public. We also got in a pickle when Jerry Dishman came in and wanted to know why we weren't mowing yards because we couldn't hire anybody. Still having trouble with that, but we found a vendor to do it for $80 a yard, and we've done about 200 that way, and I intend to expand that a little bit instead of having to settle for subpar help part-time. Oh, and we bought a coffee maker too.
Okay, no more of that. Unemployment spending over this year.
Yeah,
Is that gonna?
is what it is.
Okay. Securing property, so far you've sent, according to this budget performance, you spent.
Well, I think if you look at everything, you'll find that it's underspent at this point. We haven't done this before for the new people. I tend to hold on to the money and defer expenses until the last quarter so that if anything does arise, it can be covered. I've got about $8,000-9,000 worth of plywood I'm going to buy at the end of the year. We don't board houses until we finish mowing.
Okay.
And that's why
And
that's
that, and
not.
that makes complete sense.
And,
Let me ask.
The office supplies and things like that, I have to order 4 new computers because we're using ones that are 14 years old and they won't support the Windows upgrade.
Okay, so the items like the mowing equipment, those are things that have already been purchased that you're just waiting.
Yeah,
for
we've
the
got-
Season.
We've got I'm satisfied with our fleet. Vehicles, mowing equipment, we're in pretty good shape. Don't need it, don't want it. But I would like to have that and other. It really helps.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee?
I have a question. You mentioned $2,000 that you filled in a basement. Does that mean you have your own backhoes, excavation
Nope.
equipment, or,
Had the street department do it,
okay, all right,
and they charged us.
okay.
We had an open hole on Cherry and Memorial. We let it set too long, and it really concerned us that someone was going to get hurt.
So another department charged you to do that with their equipment?
Yeah.
Okay,
And the sanitary district charges us as well when we do cleanups. Pretty cutthroat in our line of business.
When you do the neighborhood cleanups?
Huh?
When you do oh,
No,
I was like,
when we go out to Tillotson, when we go out, we cleaned up
Oh.
Tillotson with the homeless messes and things like that. When they bring equipment out,
Right.
they ought to get compensated for it.
all right. Anyone else?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right.
Have a
Great
good
job
evening.
on that budget.
thank you.
That was a good budget. Good job.
Miss Yvonne,
Human rights.
we are on human rights, which is on page 11.
Evening.
Good evening, Ms. Yvonne.
And so the percentage of increase for salaries, did you?
None. But I do have a correction. I copied this from the 2024 budget,
Mhm.
and I just went into our HR portal. My salary is different from what's on the budget. My current salary is 52,540
For 2024?
for, yes. Mhm. So you may want to look at that.
What was that?
You may want to look at that.
5240.
It's 2,540.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what the EEOC investigator's salary is, but we got raises, so.
So are you saying that, would that have been with the 10% that came in May?
I would think so.
Miss Wright?
I bet
Okay,
it was.
all right. That's probably, yes. We'll add that little caveat up there.
Mhm.
All
But
right.
everything else is the same as 2024.
Okay, so training, travel, and fees.
5,000.
Okay. And let's just see. All right. Anyone else on the committee have questions for Miss Yvonne? Thank you, Miss Yvonne. Make it really easy.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Ms. Yvonne.
Thank you.
Good one.
Very good.
Easy. All right.
One, two.
We will now move on to the Muncie Police Department. And that begins on page 14 of your budget.
Okay, if I sit down here,
Absolutely.
Hmm.
hazards of a broken ankle.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, council.
Good
Good evening.
Traditionally, if you don't mind if I start for just a minute, in years past, I've always kind of hit a couple key highlight points from the current year.
Can we start with what we have in the line items
Yeah.
and then you
Absolutely.
can have an opportunity to present any information that is not divulged when we do that?
Sure.
All right. So the police department is one of the departments in the administration that combines all the salaries together.
Correct.
And I'm just curious the rationale behind that.
Well, we made that change, I think 3 years ago now. You guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
We made that change about 3 years ago now. I think I'd have to go back and pull the reports. In previous budgetary processes, we had line items for several different positions: chief, assistant chief, captain, lieutenant, sergeants, investigators, patrol officers. Several lines in both the general fund and in the public safety fund.
Mhm.
I met with the previous council. I know Mr. Dishman was on there, and I think Councilman Green was a part of that conversation when we did it. Within the year, the fluctuation of the operation of the department can change from time to time.
Mhm.
Positions, there are things within the contract that affect individual impacted pay. So when you start moving personnel in between lines because the position changes, or if you move them in between lines because maybe that one line is running out of money because, let's say, I can use an example of a sergeant that goes from a 10-year rate of longevity to a 15-year rate of longevity. That's an increase. There was a lot of personnel shuffling that was going on. We have to submit a PI form up to the controller's office, and I think that once you start to get into that, you open yourself up for human error when you start to take into accounting purposes. So what we did was we took the administrator lines, the 3 administrators, we built a line for that to show us separate from the rest of the department. We made sure everything was listed on the salary ordinance as part of the collective bargaining agreement, which satisfies what we were told the requirement for showing the salaries. And then we carry a payroll, what's called a payroll workbook in-house, and we manage everybody internally. So we're not constantly shuffling people around between things.
And that just helps in regards to the difference in longevities as far as the patrol off.
Yeah, longevity ranks.
And ranks.
Yeah, it could be a myriad of things, but yes, longevity, rank
right.
structure, specialty pay, all of those.
Because it would be very difficult to say exactly what the salaries would be. Okay.
Yes.
From the council's perspective, it helps to have this though, just so that we can get an idea of what we should be looking for in regards to the different line items. Not saying that any one department would do it, but to be able to take money out of one item and throw it down in overtime or things along those lines. We just need an accurate accounting, and that's the reason I asked for that. I appreciate you putting that together. So,
You got the stuff that we dropped off here.
yes.
And anytime you guys have questions about that, feel free to reach out. I can respond to where we're at in the position.
All right. So let's see here. Hold on one second. And so we're doing the general fund 101.
Okay.
So you have increases in administrative assistant, recorder clerks, code enforcement, and those all standard? And what percentage did you provide for that?
Right now, those are all of your payroll lines are going to see a 1% increase from what's reflected in the 2023 budget. That's where we started. Work with the controller's office. I will say negotiations are still ongoing with the police union and the city administration. I know that Councilman Basham's the council representative on there. That's going to land. We're at 1% now. So we'll go.
You're budgeted at an increase of 1% for.
Yep.
When that contract is settled, the cost increase over what we have currently, will that come out of general fund? Will that come out of your public safety income, local income tax? Where, just so we would have an idea of what we're looking at as far as expenses in 2025 for the general fund.
Sure. To answer that question, we put all personnel into our general fund. The only thing that we pay personnel directly out of the public safety fund is our pension. So the active pension for the so there's several pension funds, but the active perf expenses for each active law enforcement officer is paid out of the public safety fund. So it's impacted to both funds because as salaries go up, so does the pension base. So
Right.
We would see increases both in the general fund and in the public safety fund.
Do you, off the top of your head, and I didn't prepare you for that, but do you have the beginning operating balance for the Fund 106 that for 2025, January 2025?
Yes, well, it will be dependent on, we have active legislation out with the council now for an additional appropriation, and it'll be dependent on
Correct.
how we spend those
Correct.
funds. But we project it could be anywhere from, depending on the appropriation and what gets, put forward, it could be anywhere from 50,000 to 360, 370,000, depending on appropriation spend.
Right. Okay. And that's for 106. Okay. And so let's see, as we go down, patrol officers, and that was based on the 1%, your social worker based on the 1%.
May I interject for just a minute?
Absolutely,
The
sir.
social worker is a little different. I work directly with Division of Mental Health Services, Addiction, DMHA, Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services. We just had a site visit from them as we piloted this social work program. That salary increase is a little better than 1%, but they provide some of the funding back for that.
So then if they provide the funding back for this $10,000 increase, why are we taking it out of the general fund?
because we have to show the position budgeted within the general fund. We take that money back in and we can apply it towards the program efforts that we see. An example, we just had, we needed to build an office for her. And there was some expense included in that they're not covering. So there's a litany of expenses that may come up throughout the year that are tied to this program that maybe aren't necessarily funded that way. So
Okay.
that's why we put it in the general fund.
So you're saying you put the salary in at $65,000, which is $10,000 more, or minus the raise, and then that money will be actually put towards something else?
Well, for the grant, it's a reimbursement grant. So all we do is report what we're spending out as a city. And then the hope is, when we built this program, the hope was that this would become a regular budgetary process for the council to recognize the importance of this program within the community. So this money from, Division of Mental Health isn't going to last forever. And we hope that the council recognizes that this is a needed position to have on this program.
And so then let's see, going down to overtime has gone up.
Yes, it has.
Okay.
So some of that's going to be obviously in preparation for potential salary increases as salaries increase in
Makes
overtime rates. We did prepare for a little bit more. We're kind of tracking what we're doing this year. I'm happy to say that the overtime expense that we're incurring now is a lot geared towards training and engagement activities. In years past, I can use 2018 or 19, I have to show my report. We spent roughly $409,000 in overtime, and that was for the wrong reason. Overtime is one of those things for a law enforcement agency that's hard to predict in budget. We've sat on council before, and many of you have been on council for multiple years. We could have a year where we have, critical volatile situations that occur, plenty throughout the year that's going to cause, an increase in overtime burden to the department. Lucky for us that as we continue to grow salaries and we continue to be more involved in the community advocacy request, we're seeing some increased costs there. So that's why we're planning for a small overtime increase.
Okay. One moment, please. Ms. Solly?
Okay. First of all, I just want to commend the Muncie Police Department for the social worker. That is something that was advocated by the previous council and you guys listened. So kudos to you. And I'm happy to hear, I was kind of concerned about the overtime, but when you explained it to me that it was engagement and yes, the community, if you're out there with the community, they want you present. And I know you guys are being there and you are doing better at that, much better at that. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be critical, but there's just an increase of presence in the community. And I'm happy to hear that some of that overtime is going through training as well. So could you explain some of that training though for me?
Yeah, we were going to cover that in.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We were going to cover that in our update, but we are constantly getting requests for police presence all over the city.
That's
all the time,
yeah.
for various different things, whether it's community engagement or security or whatever it might be. There's a lot of that goes on. We've got a form online now, or you can fill it out in the office for any kind of police need that you might have. We certainly can't get to everything, but what we can get to, we're happy to have. So,
So I want to thank you for that. And the whole police department. Thank you for being very, very visible.
The social worker program has been fantastic for us. We've got some great employees there, and Deputy Chief Deegan has really spearheaded that and taken it on himself to make that a viable program.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Chief, capital equipment was moved out of general. Is that what I'm seeing for 2025? I don't see it in here.
The capital in the general fund, correct?
Yes.
So we met with the controller's office about this when we went through some review process. I understand that there was an issue with the software program. I think it's Gateway, I'm sorry, with populating capital equipment lines throughout the budget from how it was explained to me. Obviously, we still have that need. If we can't make any changes to it now, we'll certainly, get through first quarter of next year and try to address any needs that we may have. We may very well come back and discuss, what that looks like for us from the next thing.
Okay. Do any other committee members have any questions on the general fund with the Muncie Police Department? Okay, we have just to review, the Public Safety Fund 106, which starts on page 19 of your budget. I can find it here. Okay. And so none of your salaries are in your public safety lit.
Right.
And just perf and other supplies. I know it's your money, I'm just curious what other supplies will be next year.
So we actually made a reduction to that from the previous year by 20,000. We got so comfortable, we were pretty good with some of the profit we were seeing. This is, and I'll let the chief touch on some of the expenses that we're seeing here, but from an operational standpoint, we would like to see the increase back in $20,000 that we had reduced the previous year, so we can continue on our efforts of updating our equipment and the platform that we use for operations.
That could include a lot of different things, including, cleaning services or drug screens or first aid supplies or whatever it might be. There's a lot of things that come out of these line items that we need, and we need that money. We need that money.
Yeah.
Any other members of the committee?
Yeah.
Sarah's good.
On the improvements, it says improvements other than building. There's a $70,000 line there. I'm just curious as to what that is.
I don't see what you're looking at. What page are you on?
I am on 19, about halfway down.
Is that back to the general fund?
No. Oh, am I back on the general fund?
It's okay, we can go back there.
That's the fire department.
Nope, I am. Yep, I am totally on the wrong page. Sorry about that.
I've got it too.
These are hard to look at.
Apologize.
I did the same too.
I'm looking at your budget, and I'm going to ask you this question publicly. Have you prepared the best budget to serve your public at your best as a police department?
Here's what I'll tell you, is that we've gone through great lengths to correct the problems that we found when we came in. This would be me. I would challenge anybody to look through our budget and find any kind of expenditure that's inappropriate or not for the public or not for our people. I mean, our
That's
job
awesome.
is to do nothing but give our people absolutely every tool that we can to serve the public in the best shape.
Thank you.
So any, I know the job is to be conservative, right? But I would say that any cut to this budget is going to be directly reflected in a reduction of services to the public.
Thank you for answering that question.
I have a question if I may.
Absolutely. Councilperson.
I noticed in your general fund line item for ammo and training, it's the same last year
Right.
to this year.
So
But all the products are going up in price. How did you do that?
Well, we like to keep our finger on the pulse of the market, honestly, and we do a good job of working with our vendors to find out where the price increases are going to come. We are very judicious on putting out ammo to our officers. I mean, they shoot more now than they ever have, and we've got quite a reserve. But we want to keep it that way to allow market fluctuations. So as far as training, I mean, this money, to answer your question, the new training center that we've got, a lot of that has been built out with money like this, because now we can train not only our agency, but other agencies from around the geographic area, to include federal agencies. We can train our canine, our SWAT, and put our people in investigations and training environments so that we get the best possible outcome on the street when they encounter the exact same scenario.
Okay.
So that money is critical for us.
I just was looking for an increase.
Well, that's great. If you want
And- No, but I was shocked it was the same.
Yeah.
And I had expected an increase in that.
Yeah,
That surprised me.
we do our best to spend public funds in the most judicious way.
We appreciate
I
that.
don't want to waste public
Okay.
funds.
You haven't gone to reloading yourself, have you? Okay.
No, that would lead to several problems.
Yes, okay.
So I have a question though. Seeing that we are going to see a very tight beginning operating balance with the general fund, potentially even in the red, given what we're spending this year, what would you be able to move from the general fund budget into your other revenue funds? Just, and I'm not, I don't, I mean, that's just something that I'm going to ask. You don't have to give a definite answer, but that is definitely something that we have to ask all the departments that have alternative sources of funding.
Yeah.
The general fund covers the entire administration, and a lot of those departments do not have an opportunity for other revenues. And so, especially as we're looking at the collective bargaining agreements being settled, as we're looking at the different moving parts of both our public safety, which obviously they both need to be funded appropriately, if not more. But we have to look at the entire administration. And so if we were looking at deficits in the general fund and we had to offset some of that funding, would the police department be able to do some of that for us?
Listen, I'll be frank.
Okay.
And there's a reason. I would challenge everybody on this council to really step back and take a look. And I want to use a couple of agencies that are similar in comparison to us. Maybe not necessarily by whatever their tax base may be because of certain revenue streams, but I would challenge this council to reach out to councils from the city of Anderson and the city of Noblesville. And I spent a lot of time on the phone with administrators from other agencies to determine what their operating budgets were, to see where we kind of fell as far as, the general fund and the public safety tax fund. And we're surprisingly behind both of those. Anderson's a little smaller than us. Noblesville's a little bigger, but we are definitely behind. And I think that when all things encompassed into what we are trying to provide as far as professional policing services to this community, I do not believe that we can afford any more cuts out of the general fund. And I know that I am empathetic to the operation and the job that you guys have to make sure that the whole city operates. However, we are operating on a bare bones budget as it is. And I think that if you reach out to the other councils at other municipalities that are our size, you'll find out just how far behind we are. I hope that answers your question. Probably not what you want to hear, but that's my take on it.
It's a start. Yes, sir.
I was watching TV the other night, and it had Indianapolis PD.
Sure.
And if you see all the stuff that goes on down there, I hope you guys never experience that stuff down there the way they are. I mean, street burnouts. I know you're heavy down there in the cruise, and I appreciate that because I thought somebody was going to get killed down there.
Yeah.
I mean, I seen a guy going by on a trailer doing a burnout, sitting down on the trailer, which is crazy. But I hope you guys never get put into much of that situation down there, shooting every night. A police officer getting out there.
Yeah, and I can touch on kind of some of the calls and stuff. This agency is responsible for 50,000 calls a year. That number fluctuates from year to year. I'm not talking about 50,000 calls. We send 10 cars for one call. It becomes one call, right? That's one call. That becomes 10 calls. It's one call. So we have a high workload for the number of personnel that and they're great. These guys back, they're great at what they do. They excel at what they do. And at the end of the day, I take it personally, but I feel like it's our responsibility to make sure that we provide for them so they can provide for them, right? And so I am addressing, we are addressing 8, 9, Garrett, I don't know, it is so critical that we, whatever your belief in politics is, it's neither here nor there for me. It's about public safety and operational efficiency. And I just don't see the area that we can take a cut in the general fund to offset that expense. It's not my professional opinion.
We've really come quite a ways, from where we started. along the way. It's not just in equipment, but in training and everything else. I mean, these people that are sitting in the room right now are the backbone of public safety as far as police is concerned in the area. And we have to have them well equipped and well trained.
Definitely. Mr. Do you want to say something? I thought you had a question. Did you?
No, I don't have a good.
All right.
Well,
Are there any other questions?
I have a general comment. We're 75% through the year, and your budget performance is impressive because it really averages out 70, 74, 75 throughout. So it reinforces what you've told us about your conservative spending based on budgeted dollars and what you need. So thank you for
Yes,
that.
thank you. And I'd like to add to that under the guidance of Chief Sloan here, and the city administration, and not just this council, but the previous council that sat here before. I had a really good work on. We will not come ask you for additional new money unless we feel like it's absolutely necessary and we haven't exhausted every other opportunity that we have for us. The appropriations is one thing, and we have the funds that we know that we have in cash balance that we can access and utilize for needs that we have. But coming and asking for new money.
Right now, you're in negotiations, correct?
Well, not us, but the city administration and the FOP, yes.
I thought the police were already in there too.
The FOP is the police union.
Okay. My thing is, in negotiations, there's some things that can happen positive for you. Would that be something you could look at once it's over and it is a positive situation that might help with the budget?
I think if I understand what you're asking, if things go well in negotiations, how can we maybe offset some of the cost associated with general fund? I think it would become even more challenging, I think, probably, because that would result in an increase in pay for people, which then obviously results in a challenge for us. That's a challenge that I think would be.
The only reason why I've asked that because I don't have the information on how well it might be going versus us having to deal with a budget that might have to have an increase. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I totally.
Okay, that's fine.
And so, building on what Councilman McIntosh said, if that is an advantageous negotiation, would you be able to offset that?
That's what I'm saying.
Not necessarily with salaries, because I understand that you don't want to put salaries and any type of personnel in that. But are there ways that you could help us help you? So that's just an idea.
I'm certainly not those that would need anyone, you or all of you, to try to come up with a resolution. And that's the message that I delivered to the previous council, and I think I stuck true to my word. And I mean that for you all as well. But, with that means that, of course, sometimes there's some tough conversations, but I think collectively there's three entities that we look at here. We look at administration, we look at city administration, and we look at city council, right? And if those three entities can't figure this out, right? That's our job. That's your job. That's my job. That's the mayor's job. So I challenge you all. I'm willing to help you if you're willing to help us, right? I have an open door policy.
And that's all I was trying to get at.
If we can't work together.
That's it.
Of course.
The public loses, right?
Of course.
That's true. That's it. That's all I was.
Right. Any other questions from the committee?
I just have a comment. I know public service, as a teacher, it's not, it's an unthankful job. And I know everything that you guys do, and you deserve everything that you ask for. I know as a teacher, I don't get everything that I ask for, but I'm sure I deserve, dealing with the kids and stuff like that. But I just want to thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for answering that no, anything we cut is going to affect the public. That must have been a very tough answer for you to say, but you are being very truthful, and public safety and the safety of the community is the number one concern.
Sure.
Actually, in my opinion. So thank you.
One more. I just want to thank y'all for showing up out there at the Industrial Neighborhood Park picnic. I thought it was just overwhelming for me. I mean, it's too bad we didn't have more kids and public out there, but I was just impressed with how many officers. I had good conversations with everybody that was there. Yeah. So,
Community engagement is doing a great job there. We actually, the Whiteley District as well.
Right.
Along with several others. I mean, those two ladies that are assigned to that division and the officers that attend that, they go everywhere. All the time.
You see them everywhere, yeah.
They're doing a great job.
I'm very impressed. Very impressed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have to add, because there was a change in, I'm sorry, we're finished. We need to add one more department to tonight's agenda to accommodate scheduling. So I will entertain a motion to amend the agenda to add Prairie Creek Reservoir to the agenda for this evening.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilperson Selby, and I don't know which one.
One of these
And
days
we'll
I'm gonna
give
be
the
off.
credit to Councilperson Green. And so now we will add up Prairie Creek Reservoir to finish out the evening for us. Appreciate you, Mr. Clark.
And that is on page.
That we are starting at page 31.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was
Have that one marked.
nope, we didn't mark that one. I threw a fast one on them all, so.
No, you. You.
You don't know what you're doing to me.
Well, half my audience.
All going.
Good for you.
Has everybody found Prairie Creek Reservoir?
Yes.
All right, so we will continue. You really have not, other than the increases in salaries that were provided by the controller through the controller's office. You have not, is that the 1% then?
Correct.
Okay. And then, let's see, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've actually reduced our budget.
Yes, I saw that.
Yep. So that's probably the first thing. There is a cute little cheat sheet right here. It's got some basic information. We'll do the numbers first, and then I'll tell you a little bit about why we are different. So again, thank you for letting me be here. And thank you for accommodating. Friday wasn't
Thank
going to
you
work.
for
But
working
yep.
with
So
us.
Tuesday's going to work great.
We are working together here. Okay, so your telephone went down, your rental equipment, did that go down or did that one?
That
come
one
up?
went up.
This Prairie Creek, right?
It's Prairie Creek
Yeah.
Reservoir. Page
31,
32.
32, and about
Um,
halfway down the page.
Right.
Yep.
And then other services and charges also.
Yep.
Went-
Rental equipment went up by about 5,000
I
so
saw
dollars.
that.
Yep.
And then other services and charges, actually, where are we? That one didn't go up by much. So what is the plan then? And how can you help all the other departments to decrease their budgets?
So
You're scheduled for an in-service next week now.
yeah, I was going to say, to answer that, I'll jump towards the end.
Okay.
We are not part of the general fund. We don't
Correct.
receive tax dollars. So we are a self-funded. So we run primarily as a business. So our revenue that you see here does not come from tax dollars.
It actually does. It comes from tax dollars, which go into Fund 220.
No. So our revenue is derived mainly from our campground revenue and our dock launches, our revenue doesn't come from the general fund.
It does not come from the general fund. It
Correct.
does come from tax dollars.
Comes
That's
from
okay.
people spending money.
That it also comes from that, but you do receive tax dollars. But please
Sure,
continue.
sure. Yep. So we'll discuss that. So we're 2,200 acres, 15 miles of coastlines. We'll skip all the fun stuff, but we did reduce. So we asked for essentially the same budget as 2024, except with some reductions and some increases. Our 2024 expenses about $938,000, $768,24, and we plan on reducing that to about $855,000.
That's about an $83,000 savings. How do you do that? Well, so over the last couple years, we have embarked on a capital improvement project. So for the longest time, for generations, we have had old wooden docks. Those wooden docks are being phased out. We are about 2/3 done with the project now. So we are starting to see return on our investment. That project is still going to go on probably for one more phase. We had hoped to maybe wrap it up this year, but it looks like we're probably going to have to drag it out one more year. But that decreases our labor, that decreases our maintenance, that decreases our cost facility literally throughout the year. From we start shipping ice to put in docks at the beginning of the year, and we are struggling to get them all out by the end of the year. So that is a large portion of where our savings comes from. The other area is there's 2 sections that we do differently now than we hadn't done in the past. So we are dealing with erosion control, not with a product called riprap, which is large rock along the shoreline. We're dealing it with kind of an organic, we're using a root control. So we're allowing plants to grow up close to the shoreline, and those roots are stabilizing the bank. So when you have 15 miles of coastline, riprap adds up to a lot of money. We're not using that method nearly as much as we used to. And then we are converting unused areas that were mowed golf course style to prairie grass. So prior to year before last, we were called Prairie Creek Reservoir and had 0% prairie. Our goal is to get 1% prairie, but that 1% prairie is a significant savings when you talk about a Ferris mower at $14,000, somebody riding on it at $15 an hour, basically 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So it's a significant savings. So that's where you're going to see the majority of the savings. Also, our revenues are up. Our expenses are also up. There was a mistake. We had an error where some monies were taken from a large capital project. The docks that we purchased, $100 and some odd thousand, was taken out of 2 different line items, and I wrote them down. 44081 capital equipment and 43071 other services, really overshooting those. We have that money. The money was in different locations. It was held through a cash account and then through grants and then through our revenue. So we have the money to offset that. We still, unlike other departments, so we preload expenses throughout the year, but it's not till the end of the year where we still receive revenues. So we don't get winter revenue until after October 31st. So we are still expecting $75,298 at minimum, almost guaranteed money to come in.
And so, and I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Looking at the budget performance report, are you similar to the other department up here earlier that said that they kind of hold expenses and then turn them in? Because I'm seeing that you've only spent 4% of your park security. Meanwhile, you've spent, 202% of your overtime line item. You've zeroed out several, the 23% of employee uniforms, 0% of unemployment, 0% of office supplies. It's kind of absolutely one way or the other. It's over 100% or it's very little. So can you explain how you're doing that?
Sure. It depends on what individual line item. Some line items are an immediate repair. So we had a well go down. So well is not an expense that I can defer towards the end of the year. We would like to do as many functions and repairs and layouts at the end of the year or at the extreme beginning of the year before the season ends. So we want to do our stuff for October 31st or before May 1st. We try to stay out of the middle of the year, but we incur expenses throughout that entire time. That basically 6 months window, we keep collecting bills, but we don't receive revenue till the end. So we had a well go down. I can't defer that. That well has to be open to the public for potable water. So that was a $35,000 repair that we had to pull out of different line items. We didn't expect an entire well to quit working on us.
Okay. Great. Are there any other questions?
Did you have to, was it a new pump or did you have to re-drill the well?
So we didn't have to re-drill the well. We did have to contract Pride Mark. We had to build a new well house. We had to get a new pressure pump. We had to get a new main pump. And they had to, I want to say, I feel like they had to replace the first section of pipe. So, yep. And that was all for Indian Hill Campground. So that's
I have a question for you then. So what is the percentage of revenue versus tax dollars breakdown? Do you know?
So it seems like we are not speaking the same language. We don't receive tax dollars. So all of our money comes from money that we generate from selling daily launches, selling seasonal campsites. I have our revenue. So our revenue to date is from collected rents, annual storage fees, annual launches, non-motorized, horseback permits. I have a list of, I would say half a dozen items right here. So all in all, our revenue, none of it comes from taxes, is $871,518.88, and that was pulled 2 days ago.
Okay, that's your revenue, but
Yep.
nothing at all is paid for by.
Correct.
tax.
So in the history books of this,
That's only revenue that you're speaking of.
That's the miscellaneous revenue that you collect from your different fees and things along those lines. However, you do get property taxes. You do not get general fund dollars. You are correct there, but you do get property tax dollars that go into your fund.
would somebody show me where those property tax dollars are? Help me understand, because I'm misunderstanding.
Let's see.
Oh, well, you're looking for that. I'm going to ask another one.
Sure, go ahead.
The docks, what were most of those paid with this year?
So cash account. So any money that we return at the end of the year, we collect until we can basically do a large capital project. So that has been a big portion of it. The mayor's edit funds is going to help us a little bit with our next year's capital project. So that's,
Was there any art money used for that?
yes.
How much was
I don't have the exact number. I'm going to say it was $450,000 from art.
Unfortunately, my budget doesn't have a Form 2, so I can't show you the general, but
Sure.
I will get it.
Yep, and I
will-
can stay after and we can, yes, absolutely.
No,
Yep.
that's fine. That's fine.
Ms. Powell, could you please email it to all of us?
Absolutely. You
Thank
should
you.
have a copy of Form 2 for the 2025 budget. It should be with your ordinance. I just don't have mine with me. I only brought Form 1s. But yes, so anyway. All right. Are there any other questions for Mr. Clark?
No, I don't know.
Anyone else?
No.
Councilperson Green?
I do,
see
but
you looking at-
it doesn't pertain to the budget, but it does pertain to making more prairie. And what,
I will stay after.
and well, yes, I don't want to
Yep.
put that on the record,
Thank you.
but I
No,
want to
you're
ask
fine.
that.
And I can be here to answer questions, and you guys all have a little packet in front of you, kind of highlights of what we did this year and how kind of some challenges that we ran into that we hope to address next year. I'll stay around after.
Thank you. All right. If there are no other questions from the committee for this final department head, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move.
So moved. Second.
Thank you.
So you.
Hearing adjourned.
on to- Okay.